Hello and welcome back. I'm glad you found your way here again tonight. There's nothing you need to do right now except settle in and let your body grow heavy against the bed. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts loosen their grip on the day, the way a hand slowly opens. Tonight, we're sailing somewhere cold and quiet, into the fjords and frozen coastlines of the Norse world, where the Vikings lived, sailed, farmed, and told their stories around the fire. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you. Some of it may simply settle over you like snow, familiar and strange all at once. If any of this helps you unwind, consider subscribing to Drowsy with Facts so you can drift off with us again soon. For now, let's begin. The word Viking, as it was originally used, didn't describe an entire people or nation at all, but rather an activity, the act of going on a seafaring raid or expedition. Someone might go a Viking for a season and then return home to farm for the rest of the year, a temporary role rather than a fixed identity. Most people living in Scandinavia during this era weren't raiders at all, but farmers, fishers, craftspeople, and traders living quiet, ordinary lives, largely indistinguishable from other communities across medieval Europe. Their days shaped far more by harvests and weather than by longships and battle. The image of Vikings wearing horned helmets, so common in later art and popular culture, has essentially no basis in genuine historical evidence. That image was largely invented by costume designers and artists many centuries later, and actual Norse helmets recovered by archaeologists show simple, practical designs with no horns at all. Viking longships were remarkable feats of engineering for their time, built with a flexible, overlapping wooden plank technique that allowed the hull to bend slightly with the waves rather than fighting against them, making the ships both fast and surprisingly seaworthy, even in rough open water. Those same ships were shallow enough in the water to sail far up rivers and even be beached directly on open shoreline, giving Norse sailors remarkable flexibility to strike, trade, or settle in places that other seafaring peoples of the era simply couldn't reach. Norse sailors navigated the open ocean without a compass, relying instead on the position of the sun and stars, the direction of prevailing winds and currents, and careful observation of bird flight patterns and cloud formations near land that wasn't yet visible on the horizon. Some evidence suggests Norse sailors may have used a specific type of crystal capable of revealing the sun's position even through cloud cover, a natural navigational aid sometimes referred to in later sources as a sunstone, though its exact historical use remains debated by researchers. Viking expansion carried Norse settlers and traders across an extraordinary range of territory, from the shores of North America in the west to the rivers of Russia and the markets of Constantinople far to the east, one of the widest reaching networks of contact anywhere in the medieval world. Norse traders traveling the river roads of Eastern Europe helped establish some of the earliest trade networks connecting Scandinavia to the Byzantine Empire, exchanging furs, amber, and enslaved people for silver, silk, and other luxury goods from the wider Islamic and Byzantine world. A Norse settlement was briefly established on the coast of Newfoundland in North America, predating Columbus's famous voyage by roughly 500 years, though the settlement itself was small and ultimately abandoned after only a few years of use. Leif Erikson, the Norse explorer credited with reaching North America, is believed to have learned of the land's existence from another sailor, who had spotted it by accident after being blown off course during an earlier voyage. A chance discovery followed up deliberately soon afterward. Viking society was organized around a system of local assemblies called things, public gatherings where free men came together to settle disputes, make laws, and discuss matters affecting the wider community. An early form of collective governance functioning centuries before most of medieval Europe developed anything comparable. Norse law placed a surprising degree of legal standing on women compared to many other societies of the era, allowing them to own property, request divorce, and manage a household's affairs independently, particularly while husbands were away on long trading or raiding expeditions. Viking raids on monasteries across the British Isles, often undefended and holding valuable items, became a notorious and frequently recorded feature of the era, though these violent raids represented only one part of a much broader Norse presence that also included extensive trade, farming, and eventual permanent settlement. Many Vikings who raided or traded abroad eventually settled permanently in the lands they visited, gradually intermarrying with local populations and blending Norse language, customs, and place names into the culture of regions across the British Isles, France, and beyond. The city of York in England functioned for a period as a significant Viking trading center, its streets and marketplaces excavated in modern times, revealing an astonishing range of everyday objects, from leather shoes to children's toys, offering a detailed portrait of ordinary Norse urban life. Norse settlers established a colony on Iceland, arriving to find the island almost entirely uninhabited, and their descendants developed one of the earliest and longest continuously operating parliamentary assemblies in the world, meeting regularly at an open-air site still visited today. From Iceland, Norse explorers eventually pushed even farther west, establishing a short-lived colony on Greenland that endured for several centuries before eventually being abandoned, likely due to a combination of worsening climate, isolation, and dwindling trade contact with the rest of the Norse world. Norse mythology described an enormous world tree, its branches and roots said to connect and support several distinct realms of existence, a central image running through much of the era's storytelling and cosmology, tying together gods, giants, and the world of ordinary humans alike. Odin, one of the most prominent gods in Norse mythology, was closely associated with wisdom, war, and poetry, and stories describe him sacrificing one of his own eyes in exchange for deeper knowledge and insight into the world. Thor, perhaps the most widely recognized Norse god today, was associated with thunder and protection, wielding a mighty hammer capable of leveling mountains, a popular and beloved figure across Norse society, particularly among ordinary farmers and sailors seeking protection. Norse mythology described an eventual, prophesied battle at the end of the world, a dramatic final conflict between gods and giants that would bring about the destruction and eventual rebirth of the world, a recurring, deeply woven theme reflecting a broader Norse worldview built around cycles of destruction and renewal. Viking warriors sometimes fought using large, round wooden shields, reinforced with a metal boss at the center, arranged together in tight, overlapping formations designed to present a solid, protective wall against incoming attacks. Norse blacksmiths were highly skilled metal workers, and swords in particular were prized possessions, often given individual names and passed down carefully through families across multiple generations as treasured heirlooms. Some Norse swords recovered by archaeologists bear inscriptions believed to reference a specific, highly regarded workshop or smith, suggesting a level of specialized craftsmanship and even branding recognized and valued across the wider Norse trading world. Viking burial customs varied considerably, and some of the most notable burials involved placing the deceased inside an actual ship, along with valuable grave goods, weapons, and sometimes even animals, before covering the entire vessel with an earthen mound. One particularly well-preserved ship burial, uncovered in Norway, contained remarkably intact carved wooden objects, textiles, and other grave goods, offering archaeologists one of the richest single windows available into Norse craftsmanship, beliefs, and daily material culture. Norse society recognized several distinct social classes, ranging from enslaved people captured or purchased through raiding and trade, to free farmers and craftspeople, up through wealthy landowners and eventually local chieftains or kings, each with distinct rights and legal standing. Board games held an important place in Norse leisure culture, and archaeologists have recovered game pieces and boards from graves and settlements alike, suggesting these games carried both entertainment value and, in some burials, symbolic importance as well. Norse poetry followed intricate, demanding structural rules, and skilled poets called skalds held respected positions within royal courts, composing verse that commemorated battles, praised rulers, and preserved historical events through carefully memorized oral tradition. Much of what's known today about Norse mythology and history comes from texts written down considerably later, after the Norse world had largely converted to Christianity, meaning later scribes' own beliefs and interpretations likely shaped and filtered how these older oral traditions were eventually recorded. Runes, the distinctive angular writing system used by Norse and other Germanic peoples, were designed with straight lines specifically suited to being carved into wood or stone, avoiding the curved strokes that would be far more difficult to cut cleanly into such hard materials. Beyond practical uses like marking ownership or recording short messages, runes were also believed by some to carry magical or protective significance, carved onto weapons, jewelry, and memorial stones alike. Thousands of carved rune stones remain standing across Scandinavia today, many raised specifically to commemorate a deceased relative, often including brief details about journeys taken, battles fought, or lands the person had traveled to before their death. Norse women could achieve significant social and economic standing, and some rune stones were raised by women themselves, commemorating their own husbands, sons, or business dealings, offering a rare direct record of women's voices from an era whose written history often centers on men. Viking-era clothing was crafted primarily from woolen linen, dyed using natural plant and mineral-based dyes to produce a range of colors, and wealthier individuals often wore imported silk trim or decorative metal brooches as visible markers of status. Norse jewelry, particularly oval brooches worn by women to fasten traditional dress, has been recovered in significant quantities by archaeologists, offering valuable insight into regional variations in Norse fashion and craftsmanship across different parts of Scandinavia. Combs, surprisingly, are among the most commonly recovered personal items from Viking-era archaeological sites, suggesting that personal grooming and hygiene were valued and widely practiced parts of everyday Norse life, contrary to some later, less flattering stereotypes. Viking longhouses, the primary type of dwelling across much of the Norse world, were long, narrow structures built from timber, stone, or turf, depending on locally available materials, typically housing an extended family alongside their livestock under a single shared roof during the harsh winter months. A central hearth ran along the middle of most longhouses, providing warmth, light, and a place for cooking, with smoke rising up and escaping gradually through gaps in the roof structure above. Norse diets relied heavily on fish, particularly in coastal communities, alongside grains like barley and oats, dairy products, and meat from livestock, including cattle, sheep, and pigs, supplemented seasonally by foraged berries and wild game. Mead, a fermented drink made from honey, held cultural and ceremonial significance in Norse society, closely associated with celebration, hospitality, and the mythological stories describing feasts held among the gods themselves. Viking Age trade networks extended their reach into distant markets far beyond Europe, and archaeologists have recovered Arabic silver coins at Norse sites in Scandinavia, physical evidence of long, indirect trade routes stretching across an enormous span of the medieval world. Norse settlers in Iceland developed a rich, written tradition of sagas centuries after the Viking Age itself, blending historical memory with storytelling to preserve accounts of early settlers, family feuds, and notable events passed down through generations before finally being written down. Ship burials and other elaborate Norse funerary customs reflected a broader belief in an afterlife, and warriors who died bravely in battle were believed by some to be welcomed into a great hall in the realm of the gods, a warrior's paradise reserved for those judged worthy. Viking raiding parties, though often remembered for sudden coastal attacks, also regularly negotiated payments of silver from local rulers in exchange for peace, a practice that occasionally provided steady, non-violent income, even more reliable than raiding itself. Norse settlers who arrived in parts of England eventually blended so thoroughly with the existing population that hundreds of place names across the region today still carry clear traces of Old Norse vocabulary, quiet linguistic fossils embedded in ordinary modern maps. Several days of the modern English week are named directly after Norse gods, including Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, each quietly preserving the memory of a god once widely worshipped across the Norse world. Viking Age ships weren't only used for raiding and exploration, but also served as vital cargo vessels supporting an extensive trading economy. Specifically designed cargo ships built wider and deeper than sleek raiding longships to carry more goods across calmer trading routes. Norse blacksmiths and craftspeople produced remarkably fine metalwork, including intricately decorated brooches, belt buckles, and weapon fittings, often featuring detailed interlocking animal designs that remain distinctive and recognizable as Norse artistic style even today. Viking settlements in Ireland contributed directly to the founding and early growth of several cities still prominent today, including Dublin, which began as a Norse trading and shipbuilding settlement before growing steadily into a significant medieval town. Norse chieftains and kings relied heavily on personal loyalty and gift-giving to maintain the support of warriors and followers, a relationship built on reciprocal generosity and obligation rather than formal, centralized taxation. In the earliest part of the Viking Age, the transition of Scandinavia to Christianity occurred gradually over generations, often driven initially by kings converting for political reasons, before more broadly encouraging or requiring conversion among their wider populations. Some Norse burial practices changed noticeably following the spread of Christianity, shifting away from elaborate grave goods and ship burials towards simpler burial customs, more aligned with Christian religious practice. Viking Age Scandinavia was never a single unified nation, but rather a patchwork of separate regions and competing chieftains and kings, only gradually consolidating into the more centralized kingdoms of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, recognizable in later medieval history. Norse ships and sailing technology directly influenced shipbuilding traditions across the regions Vikings settled and traded with, contributing techniques and design elements that persisted in Northern European seafaring long after the Viking Age itself had ended. Everyday Norse life, for the vast majority of the population, centered far more on the seasonal rhythm of farming, fishing, and household work than on any of the raiding and exploration most commonly associated with the era in popular imagination today. Children in Norse society were expected to begin contributing to household and farm work from a fairly young age, learning practical skills like weaving, tool use, and animal care gradually through direct participation in daily family life. Viking Age board games, weapons, and tools recovered from graves suggest that certain personal possessions were considered important enough to accompany the deceased into whatever afterlife awaited them, offering modern archaeologists rich, tangible insight into what Norse society valued most. The word berserker, describing a fierce Norse warrior said to fight in a trance-like, frenzied state, has entered modern language directly from Old Norse, though the true historical nature and reliability of these accounts remains debated among historians studying the era. Excavated Norse settlements across Scandinavia reveal surprisingly sophisticated urban planning in certain trading towns, including organized property boundaries, dedicated market areas, and evidence of specialized craft production concentrated in particular districts. Viking longships found preserved in bogs and burial mounds have been painstakingly reconstructed by modern shipbuilders using traditional techniques, and sea trials of these faithful replicas have confirmed just how fast, capable, and seaworthy the original vessels truly were. One of the most famous Viking raids in history took place at a monastery on the island of Lindisfarne, off the northeastern coast of England, an attack so shocking to contemporary writers that it's often treated by historians as the symbolic beginning of the wider Viking Age across Europe. Danegeld, a payment of silver made by English rulers in exchange for peace, became such a regular and heavy burden that it eventually required a dedicated system of taxation to collect, an early example of organized kingdom-wide taxation, created specifically in response to Viking pressure. One particularly successful Norse leader eventually ruled over England, Denmark, and Norway simultaneously, uniting a vast northern territory under a single crown for a time, a rare and remarkable political achievement for any ruler of that era, Norse or otherwise. The region of England known as the Danelaw operated for a time under distinct Norse-influenced laws and customs, separate from the rest of Anglo-Saxon England. Its boundaries and legal traditions leaving a lasting linguistic and cultural imprint still visible in the region today. A Norse leader named Rollo was eventually granted land in northern France in exchange for peace and loyalty, founding a territory that became known as Normandy, meaning land of the Norsemen, whose descendants would, generations later, famously invade England themselves. The Battle of Stamford Bridge, fought in England, is often cited by historians as marking the symbolic end of the Viking Age, a decisive defeat for a Norwegian king's invasion force only weeks before an entirely different, unrelated invasion would change English history forever that same year. Norse ships varied considerably by purpose, and alongside the sleek, fast longships built for raiding and warfare, broader, deeper cargo vessels called knarrs were built specifically for hauling trade goods and settlers across open ocean, prioritizing capacity over speed. The dragon-headed prows, sometimes carved onto the front of Norse warships, were believed by some to serve a protective or intimidating purpose, and evidence suggests these carved figureheads were sometimes deliberately removed when approaching friendly shores, so as not to frighten local protective spirits. Norse cosmology described 9 distinct interconnected worlds, joined together by the branches and roots of an immense world tree, each realm home to different beings, from gods and giants to elves and the world of ordinary humans, all bound together within a single vast, living cosmic structure. A shimmering, burning rainbow bridge was said to connect the world of gods to the world of humans below, guarded constantly by a watchful deity who would sound a great horn to warn of any approaching danger threatening the realms. Among the many Norse deities, Freya was closely associated with love, fertility, beauty, and also, notably, war and death. Said to receive half of all warriors who died bravely in battle, welcoming them into her own great hall rather than Odin's. Loki, a complex and unpredictable figure in Norse mythology, was capable of shifting shape entirely, sometimes helping the gods with clever solutions and other times causing considerable mischief and harm. A trickster whose loyalties shifted unpredictably throughout the old stories. The death of the god Balder, beloved by nearly all other gods and believed nearly invulnerable, became one of the most emotionally resonant stories in Norse mythology. His death, interpreted by many scholars as symbolically foreshadowing the coming destruction, described in later prophecy. 3 mysterious female figures known as the Norns were believed to shape the fate of both gods and humans alike, tending the roots of the great world tree and weaving the threads of destiny. A quiet, powerful presence, operating beyond the influence of even the gods themselves. Viking warriors carried a range of weapons beyond swords, including axes, spears, and a shorter, single-edged blade called a sayax, each suited to different combat situations and, for many ordinary farmers turned warriors, considerably more affordable and accessible than an expensive, elaborately crafted sword. In battle, Norse warriors often fought in a tight shield wall formation, overlapping shields to create a solid defensive barrier, a tactic requiring considerable discipline and coordination, relying heavily on warriors trusting the strength and steadiness of those fighting directly beside them. Norse society placed enormous cultural weight on personal honor and reputation, and a person standing along with that of their entire family could be shaped for generations by how bravely, fairly, or dishonorably they were remembered to have acted during their lifetime. Viking settlers established a lasting presence across the Orkney and Shetland Islands, off the coast of Scotland, where Norse language and customs persisted strongly enough that a distinct Norse-influenced dialect continued to be spoken there for centuries afterward. Even more remote Norse settlement reached the Faroe Islands, a small, windswept archipelago in the North Atlantic, where descendants of early Norse settlers developed a distinct language and culture that continues largely uninterrupted on the islands to this day. Buried hoards of Viking Age silver, sometimes containing coins, jewelry, and cut fragments of silver used as currency by weight, continue to be discovered by archaeologists and even ordinary metal detector hobbyists across former Norse territories, offering fresh material evidence of Viking Age wealth and trade even now. Norse society didn't originally use gold or silver coins the way later medieval Europe did, and silver was instead often valued and exchanged simply by weight, sometimes cut into smaller fragments to make exact change during a trade or a transaction. Viking Age medicine relied on a combination of practical herbal knowledge and spiritual or magical belief, and archaeological evidence, including some remarkably careful surgical tools, suggests a level of practical medical skill that shouldn't be underestimated simply because it existed alongside spiritual healing practices. Norse belief in the human soul was notably complex, describing several distinct spiritual components tied to a single person, including one aspect representing physical form and strength, and another believed capable of traveling independently, sometimes taking the shape of an animal. Viking Age long-distance trade brought exotic materials into Scandinavia from remarkably distant sources, including walrus ivory from the far north, amber gathered along Baltic shorelines, and furs trapped deep in northern forests, all traded onward across an extensive Norse and European trading network. A pair of large carved stone monuments raised in Denmark by a Norse king and later his son commemorate the unification of Denmark and its formal conversion to Christianity, an important and unusually well-preserved piece of direct dated Norse royal history. That same Danish king, remembered for uniting rival factions and territories, indirectly lent his nickname centuries later to a modern short-range wireless technology, whose logo even combines two ancient runes representing his initials. Viking raiders sailed as far south as Paris, besieging the city directly along the Seine River, and also reached the Islamic territories of southern Spain, launching raids against the wealthy city of Seville before eventually being repelled. Norse traders and warriors traveling the river systems of Eastern Europe became closely involved in the founding of some of the earliest organized states in the region, and the very name later associated with Russia is believed by many historians to trace back directly to these early Norse traders and settlers. Some Norse warriors traveled even farther, serving as elite, highly trusted personal guards for the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople, and prestigious and lucrative posting that attracted ambitious Norse warriors from across Scandinavia, seeking fortune and reputation abroad. Norse sailcloth, essential to powering longships across open water, was woven from wool using a labor-intensive process, and historians estimate producing a single large sail could require the wool from dozens of sheep and many months of dedicated weaving work by skilled craftspeople. Beyond Valhalla, the great hall associated with Odin, another realm called Folkvanger, overseen by the goddess Freya, also welcomed worthy warriors after death. A reminder that Norse ideas about the afterlife were more varied and layered than popular retellings often suggest. The midwinter Norse festival of Yule involved feasting, the burning of a large ceremonial log, and various customs believed by historians to have influenced and blended into later Christian Christmas traditions as Scandinavia gradually converted to Christianity over subsequent generations. Norse law recognized formal outlawry as a serious punishment for certain crimes, stripping a person of legal protection entirely and effectively banishing them from society, sometimes for a set number of years and sometimes permanently, depending on the severity of their offense. The Icelandic sagas, though written down generations after the events they describe, preserve detailed, often surprisingly personal accounts of family feuds, legal disputes, and settlement history, blending genuine historical memory with storytelling embellishment in ways historians continue to carefully untangle. Modern researchers have used the growth rings preserved in old shipwrecks and timber to precisely date Norse ships and buildings, matching distinctive patterns of wider and narrower rings, shaped by each year's weather, against long-established regional timber records. Viking-age women, in addition to running households and raising children, were also frequently responsible for the demanding, skilled work of weaving sailcloth and clothing, an essential economic contribution without which Norse ships would never have been able to sail at all. Certain Norse graves belonging to women have been found containing weapons and warrior equipment, leading some researchers to suggest that at least a small number of Norse women may have participated directly in warfare themselves, though this interpretation remains actively debated among historians and archaeologists. Viking-age settlements gradually shifted in character over the centuries, moving from smaller, scattered farming communities toward increasingly organized towns with dedicated marketplaces, craft workshops, and eventually formal minted coinage of their own. The Norse concept of fate, often described using the old word, carried a sense that a person's destiny was already woven, shaping Norse attitudes toward courage and death in battle, since fighting bravely against an already determined fate was considered honorable, regardless of the eventual outcome. Norse settlers arriving in Iceland found a landscape shaped by volcanic activity, geothermal springs, and glaciers, and they quickly adapted their farming and building techniques to a climate considerably harsher than the milder regions of Scandinavia most had left behind. The Icelandic Assembly, established remarkably early in the island's settlement history, met annually at a dramatic rift valley where two tectonic plates meet, and its long, largely unbroken tradition of public governance is often cited as one of the earliest sustained parliamentary systems anywhere in the world. Norse settlers on Greenland established two main colonies along sheltered fjords, raising livestock and trading walrus ivory back to Europe for several centuries before the settlements were gradually abandoned, their final years still only partially understood by historians and archaeologists. Climate researchers studying ice cores and other environmental evidence have found that a gradual cooling period likely made farming increasingly difficult for Greenland's Norse settlers. compounding pressure from isolation and declining trade contact with the wider Norse world. Viking Age blacksmiths worked with iron smelted from bog ore, a naturally occurring iron-rich deposit found in wetland areas across Scandinavia, allowing many communities to produce their own tools and weapons locally, rather than relying entirely on imported metal. Shipbuilders selected timber with enormous care, often choosing trees whose natural curve and grain matched the specific structural part of the ship being built, minimizing weak points and maximizing the strength and flexibility of the finished hull. Viking Age combs, tools, and other small household items were often carved from antler or bone, materials that were abundant, durable, and relatively easy to work with, using the simple tools available at the time. Trade goods moving through Norse market towns were often weighed using small, portable folding scales, allowing merchants to verify the correct weight of silver during a transaction while traveling. Evidence of a surprisingly mobile and standardized trading culture. Certain Norse settlements developed specialized production centers, with archaeological evidence showing entire communities focused heavily on activities like comb making, textile production, or metalworking, suggesting an economy considerably more organized and specialized than often assumed. Viking longships, for all their fame in warfare and exploration, were also put to more mundane, practical use, ferrying livestock, grain, and building materials along the extensive network of fjords and coastal waterways that connected scattered Norse farming communities. Feasts held by Norse chieftains and kings served an important political function beyond simple hospitality, reinforcing social bonds and loyalty among followers through shared food, drink, and the exchange of gifts, a custom deeply woven into how Norse leadership actually functioned day to day. Storytelling held a central place in Norse culture, and long winter evenings were often spent gathered around the hearth, listening to tales of gods, heroes, and ancestors, an oral tradition that helped preserve history and cultural values across generations before much of it was ever written down. Viking Age burial mounds, some quite large and prominent within the landscape, were sometimes deliberately placed in visible locations, possibly intended to assert a family's long-standing claim to nearby land through the visible presence of their ancestors' graves. Certain elaborate Norse burials included sacrificed animals, most commonly horses and dogs, believed to accompany and assist the deceased in whatever journey or afterlife awaited them beyond death. Amber, a fossilized tree resin washed up along Baltic shorelines, was highly valued throughout the Norse world and beyond, traded across enormous distances and fashioned into beads, pendants, and other small decorative objects prized for their warm, glowing color. Viking Age textile production was extraordinarily labor-intensive, and historians estimate that producing the wool sail for a single large ship alone could take a small group of weavers well over a year of steady, dedicated work. Certain Norse settlements show clear evidence of organized craft specialization by gender, with textile production overwhelmingly associated with women's work, while metalworking and shipbuilding were more typically, though not always exclusively, associated with men. Viking raiding parties often specifically targeted wealthy, lightly defended religious sites, not out of any particular animosity toward Christianity itself, but simply because monasteries were well known to hold concentrated, valuable, and poorly guarded treasure. Norse society's relationship with the wider Christian world grew more complex over time, and many Norse traders and mercenaries served Christian rulers abroad, even while their home regions in Scandinavia remained only partially or gradually converted. Certain Viking Age kings actively encouraged the establishment of churches and Christian practices as part of a broader strategy to strengthen centralized royal authority, using the new religion's clear hierarchy as a useful tool for consolidating political power. Archaeological excavations at major Norse trading towns have revealed evidence of long-distance contact through imported goods like glass beads, pottery, and fine textiles, physical proof of Scandinavia's deep integration into wider European and even Asian trade networks. The Norse language, Old Norse, eventually developed into the modern Scandinavian languages spoken today, including Icelandic, which has changed remarkably little over the centuries, allowing many modern Icelandic speakers to read the original medieval sagas with relatively little difficulty. Viking Age society valued hospitality highly, and turning away a traveler in need of shelter was considered a serious breach of social custom, reflecting the practical necessity of mutual aid in a world of long distances and harsh winters. Certain Norse artifacts recovered from graves and settlements show clear evidence of repair and reuse, suggesting that even valuable items like weapons and jewelry were carefully maintained and passed down rather than casually replaced. The transition away from the Viking Age didn't happen suddenly or uniformly across the Norse world, and different regions of Scandinavia continued various Norse-era customs, laws, and beliefs at different paces well into the following centuries. What survived most enduringly from the Viking Age wasn't the raiding so often emphasized in popular memory, but the quieter, longer legacy of trade routes opened, settlements founded, languages blended, and stories carefully preserved, passed down carefully enough to still reach us gently tonight. And so, tonight we leave the Norse world exactly where the sagas so often do. At sea beneath a wide sky, sails full, moving steadily toward a shore not yet in sight. Certain Viking Age settlements have been discovered almost entirely by accident, uncovered during modern construction or farming work. Quiet reminders that considerable Norse history likely still rests undisturbed beneath ordinary fields and towns across Scandinavia and beyond. Wooden Norse buildings, unlike the stone structures of many other medieval cultures, rarely survived intact above ground, and much of what's known about Viking Age architecture comes instead from careful excavation of post holes and foundation traces left behind in the soil. Certain particularly well-preserved Norse sites, protected by waterlogged or oxygen-poor soil conditions, have yielded remarkably intact organic materials, including wood, leather, and textile fragments that would have decayed completely almost anywhere else. Viking Age trade wasn't limited to luxury goods, and everyday items like soapstone cooking vessels, quarried and carved in specific regions with suitable stone, were traded and used widely across the wider Norse world. Evidence of a genuinely interconnected regional economy. Certain Norse settlements specialized in producing particular goods for wider trade, and archaeological evidence of large-scale iron production at some sites suggests organized, surplus-focused craft production rather than purely small-scale, local self-sufficiency. Viking ships were steered using a single large oar, mounted on the right-hand side toward the stern, a design detail believed by some language historians to be the origin of the modern nautical term still used today for the right side of a ship. Certain Norse burial sites include small model boats or boat-shaped stone settings rather than full-size ships, a more modest but symbolically similar way of honoring the dead with the imagery of a journey, even when an actual seaworthy vessel wasn't buried alongside them. Viking Age society, despite popular focus on warfare, dedicated enormous collective effort toward agriculture and successful farming, particularly through harsh northern winters, remained the true foundation, supporting nearly every other aspect of Norse life and culture. Livestock, particularly cattle and sheep, represented significant wealth in Norse society, and the number of animals a family owned often served as a practical, visible measure of their overall prosperity and social standing within the community. Certain Norse place names still used today directly describe practical features of the original landscape, incorporating Old Norse words for elements like a farm, a valley, a stream, or a specific type of woodland, quiet linguistic clues to the land's much older history. Viking Age craftspeople occasionally signed or marked their work, and certain tools, weapons, and jewelry bear symbols or brief inscriptions believed to identify a specific maker or workshop, an early gesture toward individual craftsmanship and reputation. Norse society's oral storytelling tradition placed considerable value on memory and verbal skill, and the ability to recite lengthy poems or genealogies accurately was a genuinely respected talent, carrying real social prestige within a largely non-literate culture. Certain Norse myths describe the created world beginning from the body of a primeval giant, whose form was said to have shaped the earth, sky, and sea, a creation story emphasizing transformation and continuity rather than creation entirely from nothing. Viking Age Scandinavia maintained contact and trade with Sami communities to the north, exchanging goods like furs and reindeer products, a relationship that, alongside trade, also involved cultural exchange and, at times, tension over land and resources. Certain Norse legal codes, eventually written down after the Viking Age itself, preserve remarkably detailed rules covering everything from property disputes to compensation owed for various injuries, offering historians a clear, practical window into how Norse communities actually resolved everyday conflicts. The Norse world's slow transformation into the more centralized medieval kingdoms of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden unfolded alongside broader changes occurring across Europe, as smaller, looser political structures gradually gave way to larger, more formally organized states. Even as the Viking Age itself faded into history, Norse cultural influence persisted quietly for centuries afterward, woven into language, place names, legal traditions, and family lineages across an enormous stretch of territory the Norse had once sailed, settled, and called, if only briefly, home. The same cold northern waters that once carried longships across open ocean are, right now, simply moving quietly beneath a dark sky, tide rising and falling exactly as it always has. Somewhere wind is moving across a quiet fjord. Somewhere an old rune is weathering another fraction of an inch. And none of it needs anything from you right now except your rest. You've drifted tonight through long ships and long houses, through gods and sagas, past farmers and traders and travelers who crossed more of the world than most people ever guessed. The whole vast, quiet story of the Norse world, resting now beneath centuries of snow and story alike. Let it hold you now, the way it's always held everything else. Let your breathing settle into its own slow rhythm. There's nowhere else you need to be, nothing else you need to understand tonight. Just this quiet history and this quiet rest, drifting gently together in the dark. Sleep well, and I'll see you next time for another 100 facts, drifting softly into sleep.